All right. So, welcome again, everyone. My name is Stephanie Dolly. I'm the Nutrient Management Training and Certification Coordinator here at the DCR. I'm going to move this over here. This is our first webinar in our Back to Basics plan writing uh, webinars, I guess, that I've set up throughout this whole process. They're going to be half an hour chats where they're very informal and we just have a conversation about plan writing. This first one we called Getting Started. So really it's going to be what to do to actually collect the information that you need. Say it's your first plan, say you haven't written a plan in quite a few years. Where do we start? And one thing I do want to point out, and I have up on the screen here, is our website. So if you just type into any search engine, DCR Nutrient Management, Virginia, you'll generally come to our nutrient management page. And on this left side tab here, you'll see all these little side drop downs. If you click on Planner Resources, we have quite a few number of resources that are very helpful for planning. This is where we have information on training as well. And if everyone can keep muted unless you have a question, I'd really appreciate that. So we have here staff contacts. So if you have a question about a specific part of a plan, who in the DCR to contact regarding that plan that you want to look for. We have here for all planners our directory and our training regulations, as well as some continuing education meetings from the past that we have linked up here for resources. This is probably where I will end up putting all of these webinars just for reference. Also, here is our current approved list of all labs through that are available for plan writing. If you work with a lab that is not on our list, please contact me and we can work with getting them set up as a lab. So right now we currently have 12 or so labs. If they're not on here, please let us know. And basically we just have to check to make sure that they're using either Malick 1 or Malick 3, which is what we work with for plan writing. Also down here is information if you want to jump into the online plan writing module or app. We call it kind of either or. This is what is going to be. Can everyone please mute themselves if you're not speaking? I'd really appreciate that. If you want to get involved in the new plan writing system, so this is what is going to eventually replace Nutman. It's all online and it includes a really great mapping feature. And so when I'm going through these trainings, it's going to be based off of the module and not so much Nutman, just because that is the planning app that the DCR has been using for quite some time. But we have information on here on how to get access to it. If you're interested, you do have to take a 45-minute security training because you're going to be accessing a state server, essentially. It's a security training on, not sharing your password and that kind of internet and computer safety. So we have steps on how to log in or get set up in the module. And then once you are set up, we're working through a series of training videos. Right now, our training is basically you make an appointment with me and we'll do a video call where we'll go through all the steps of the plan writing process in the module versus Nutman, working on an actual manual and some training videos. So those are there for your information. And then here we have our ag specific information, which is where a lot of this chat will be based off of. So we have our current verification and enhanced nutrient management forms here. We have biosecurity, which has been a hot topic lately. This is where you can download Nutman if you so choose to write that. It's still viable version, even though we would prefer things being written in the module. And then today, what we're going to focus on is this getting started writing plans little paragraph we have here. So right now there are two documents that have been recently uploaded onto them, and we're going to go over both of them today. The first one here is the plan writing information collection document. And so this is very helpful for you to take out on a farm visit, or if you don't want to take it out, read it through before you go out and see what kind of information you'll need to be collecting based on what kind of farm you're going on, if they've had a nutrient management plan before or not. And then, so this is just a, printout copy. This is a fillable version of it. So if you have a tablet and you want to actually fill it out while you're in the farm, go for it. And then once we have the plan actually completed, we have the components of plan writing here, which is generally the documents that you include in the plan for the farmer. And so we're going to touch on that today because this is really what's going to guide this back to basics plan writing workshops that we're putting together, kind of following through the various portions of the reports that come out of the plan writing software. Also on here is our DCR paid samples from Clemson. We get 2 manure samples per client on the DCR, so you have to fill out this specific form. Our current special conditions also live here, so these are what are attached to VPAs. Also, we have some special conditions for dairy and beef operations not having a VPA. Special conditions for poultry litter end users of those in the litter transport program, as well as the typical VPA ones. And the last bit here is plan writing guidance documents, which are generally things that were created after the standards and criteria, just for some more information on them. And the last bit, if you are turf certified, we have a list of turf information similar to ag as well here. And the last bit here is this is where all the newsletters live that you received, I guess 3 now. And they also always live on the website. So if you want to go back and reference whatever is talked about, you certainly can. All right, so that was a little bit about the website and that it exists, and we're trying to make it more useful one edit at a time. So with that, we'll jump right into what we're here to talk about today, and that is getting started writing a plan. So like I said, we're going to talk about this little paragraph here and these 2 documents, mainly this nutrient management plan writing information collection and then the components of plan writing. So I'm going to start with the plan writing information collection document. Like I said, there's 2 versions of it. This one is just your, get that out of the way. This one is just the typical print out and you can write in it version, and it'll just say, not fill just, I think it is the plan writing information collection. And then if you go to this one that says fillable, you can type in whatever you need to for this. So it's, up to you, whichever one you want to use. This one is better generally to fill out and then print out, and this one is to print out and fill out by hand if that's what you choose. And again, this doesn't have to be saved anywhere in the plan. This would mainly be for you, the plan writer's office file. You don't have to fill out everything in it. Obviously, if you're not doing an animal plan, half of this form won't be needed for you. This is just to kind of step you through what questions you should be asking and what information you need to collect to make your site visits more efficient and make sure that you kind of get all the information in that you need, so you're not having to constantly go back and ask them for more information. So it starts out pretty simple, name, address of the person that you're meeting. If the owner is different than the operator, you need that for any reason, you have that there. If they're working with a fertilizer supplier like Nutrien, Maharan, etc., and you want to put that down there, we certainly can. And if they do biosolids, it can be helpful to have that information as well. General need for the plan, are they doing it for cost share for the district, for the soil and water conservation district, or the NRCS? Is it a VPA? Is it voluntary? Is there another reason? Sometimes there's local ordinance requirements. Not needed, but very helpful, especially if you have a permitted plan. And generally, it's really helpful to get that permit number to include in the information that you send up for its review, just so we're making sure we are tracking the same farm as the same permit number. Farm management, who's taking the soil samples, how often are they taken? Are there, are there current soil samples for this farm? Where are the samples sent to what lab? And then who makes the recommendations for this? Are they, coming from the laboratory? Is it coming from a fertilizer dealer? Because I've seen some of that where they send it off to Waypoint, but then it goes through, say, Coastal Ag or what have you, and then you kind of are working through what they have. So it can be quite the spider web of who's looking at these soil samples before you. Are they doing any tissue sampling on their crops? And if they are, what kind? Are they doing PSNTs? All this stuff is helpful in building up how you will lay out the plan when it comes down to that. And these next two pages are mainly for livestock and poultry situations. This first page is poultry, so you have your chicken, your turkey, and then kind of the subset: broilers, breeders, layers, pullets, toms. How many birds per flock, how many cycles per year. This is very helpful because it'll tell you generally how much manure is going to be produced on that farm. If they work with an integrator, who it is, how many cleanouts per year. Is all the manure sold? Is some of it sold? Is it all used on farm? And then once you get down to this portion, this is on farm generally, how much incorporation is being used in this situation. So you have injected immediate, which tends to be trickier for poultry litter, but hey, it could happen. After 2 days, after 4 days, 7 days or no incorporation, and then irrigated without incorporation really isn't applicable for chickens, but it will be for your other more liquid sources. Your manure analysis, yes or no, the lab, the date, the analysis. And again, a lot of these papers you'll be getting when you go out to the farm. They'll generally give you a stack of soil samples, a stack of maps, a stack of, oh my gosh, just lost my train of thought, an analysis if they need it. And so this form can kind of guide you to telling the farmer what information that you need. And it can also be useful that once you get this information, if you want to keep it all in one spot, so instead of having to look through 12 different pieces of paper while you're actually writing the plan, if you want to organize everything in the office, once you have it all collected onto this form, you can certainly do that too. Or you can never use this form again. Just look at it and say, hey, I know what I need. It's fine. This is it is here for your help. So use it how best it would suit you. Don't feel like you have to be crammed into one specific use of this. And then if they are spreading it, yes, no, custom spreader, the type, the capacity, width pattern, is it calibrated, and when? And then you jump down into dairy, beef, swine, etc., which is pretty similar to the chicken. We just have what kind of animal it is, the numbers, the average weight, the percent of time confined. This again will help figure out how much manure is being generated into that storage. The type of manure storage and capacity, frequency of cleanouts. If there's a feedlot, does it drain into the storage? If there is it covered? And then is that paved or unpaved? If there is a roofed area, how big is it? That is simply collecting the water that could potentially be running off into the feedlot, which could also then, create more manure for you to end up having to spread. Is the manure applied on farm or sold? And again, the same kind of injection, manure analysis, and spreader information. That's generally going to get you almost all the information that you need to get how much manure is being collected. And then from there, you'd want to open up a conversation about how the farmer typically does the spreading in their operation at that moment. What's their general amount they put on fields, or there's specific fields that they mainly hit, which you could kind of see from soil samples. If you see very high fields, that's generally going to be ones that are applied to a lot. If there are fields that aren't very high, ask them maybe why they haven't spread on that field. Is it hard to get to? Is it what makes it unreasonable for spreading? If they are working with biosolids, just yes or no. Locations receiving those biosolids, generally the biosolid applicators will have a plan as well for those specific fields, but not the whole farm. So you going into this plan, writing the plan for other reasons other than biosolid, it helps to know what's happening on those specific fields so you can coordinate what nutrients are really happening in those areas. The amount applied and then the analysis of that. You also have your calcium, your magnesium, and your calcium carbonate equivalent. If they're doing lime stabilized biosolids, they're going to be getting a chunk of lime along with that as well. And this is for your animal plans, or I guess it can be for biosolids too, your phosphorus index. So fields with very high soil analysis, if they're receiving organic fertilizer, not commercial fertilizer, this is only organic, yes or no. And then it'll tell you the information you really need to collect from those fields for entry into the P index. So for the P index, we're looking for distance from stream. If there is a stream by that field, what is the riparian buffer, if there is one, width? So is there any kind of tree, tall grasses, etc. between the field or and the water, or is it just field right into water? The crop type, we're going to have crops, so that's row crop, small grains, continuous no-till crop, and then continuous grasses, so kind of hay pasturing situation where you're not seeing a rotation. If you are doing a conservation practices on crop acres, do they contour? Is there terrace? Is it conservation tillage? If it's a pasture practice, what kind of cover is on that? Is it heavily grazed? Is it moderately grazed, or is it lightly grazed? And then that's it. You collect that information from those different fields. And generally, oh, I should have put this in there. If they work with the NRCS, with a conservation plan, or with the soil and water districts, do they have a Russell 2 number, or are you going to run the ERA? So I did forget to put that piece of information in there. I will add that in. But basically, if they don't have a Russell 2 number, that's okay. We'll just look at what kind of rotation they have, and you can do an erosion risk analysis on assessment on it, which will basically give you kind of a quick and dirty Russell 2 number. But for that, you basically need where they are in the state, which is going to be automatically pooled when you enter things into the module, and then what kind of cropping system are they in? Is it, pastured? Is it a row crop? And then are those row crops tilled or not tilled? Pretty straightforward. So that information, there's only one page of this, but if you've got a lot of high P fields, you can print that page as many times as you need. And then the last bit of information would be your crop acreage information. So we have listed all the major crops. We have corn. Is it grain? Is it silage? Is it conventional tilled? Is it no tilled? Is it irrigated? All those are going to make a difference when you enter it into the plan writing software. You have your small grains, wheat, barley, rye, oats, triticale, whether they're tilled or no tilled. Your beans, your early, your late. You have your forages, you have grasses, a legume, a mixture, hay, pasture, just the type of it and the acres that you're looking at. And your annual acreage planted in cover crops. So there's kind of the sky's the limit with cover crop anymore. You got wheat, barley, rye, oats, triticale, and there's lots of legume mixes. If it is a legume mix, it's pretty important to get what percentage that is, because that's going to affect your nitrogen residuals in this plan. If they do any specialty crops, we have a section here for that type. You can fill that in, your total acreage, and then for the fertilizer, is the farmer spreading it? If not, are they custom spreading it? And what's the type and capacity and width of that? Is it calibrated? Yes or no? Dates, etc. And then the last 2 pages here are graphs, I guess, little spreadsheet charts of information that you can collect that if you want to know specifically more about their corn, when they pre-plant, how much they put at planting, if they do any side dressing, more specific to the tillage, if you want to jot specific notes down here about their different mixtures, or if they have specialty crops, you certainly can use this. And then down here we have an even more specific information for your manures. We are looking at your field number, acres, previous crops to be planted potentially, and then how much manure or biosolids you're looking at. So that is the quick and dirty of our plan writing information form. Again, use this to your best advantage. Don't feel like you have to use every single aspect of this. It's not going to be useful for every single plan, but use bits and pieces that you find work for you. Did I hear a question? Okay. And then in our last few minutes, we're going to check out this components of plan writing form. This is going to be, I guess, kind of our syllabus. That's a good word. For these back to basics plan writing webinars that we're doing. So in this form here, and again, these are found on this getting started portion of our page. This is the components of plan writing. It'll have planning steps where you collect and evaluate information from the farm overall. You can use a plan writing information form if it works for you. Determine yields either through our values, or if the farmer has specific yields, you can certainly use those. Inventory the on-farm nutrients through manure, through legumes, through soil tests. Figure out what the farmer's general rotation is. If there are environmental concerns or hazards, if there are sinkholes in various fields, if they are right near a major tributary to any kind of stream, you might want to really be aware of those. Once you have that, you're going to allocate your on-farm and your purchased nutrient sources to the fields, and then identify timing and placement to maximize crop uptake. So this is how much you're going to put on, and then this last step is when you're going to put it on. And as we get to those specific portions of the plan writing process, we'll go through those in much more detail. So this next section covers what a general complete nutrient management plan is going to look like. So topics 1 through 9 are generally recommended to give to the producer, where topics 10 through 14 are reports that can be generated through the plan, but are not necessarily helpful to the farmer. They're more calculations of how you got to the P-index or erosion number, or generally every single piece of information you could use on the farm, which might be helpful for you to look at as a planner, but you don't need to give to the farmer. So what we recommend, and we being the DCR from the perspective of reviewing plans, plan identification sheet. This is generally the cover sheet. It's going to have the farmer's information, your information, and then information about what kind of crops there are, how many acres are in crop, hay, specialty, and pasture. It's going to have information on the animal numbers and how much manure is created through that, and how much is utilized on the farm and how much is sold. We're going to have the narrative, and the narrative is a hot topic of recent, where how much is too much to put in it, how much is not enough to put in it. And so generally you're looking at using this to assist with tailoring the plan to the individual. So you're going to put information in there that might not necessarily be as clear in the plan. Information on cropping farms, describing the practices, if they're using no-till or minimum till, what kind of legumes they might be using, proximity to fields and streams, and generally other practices like that. If the information is for an animal operation, describe the animal numbers, types, and the manure system. So how many animals you have, generally how big they are, what their barns are like, what the manure storage is like. and how the manure is handled. Um, Manure amounts, you can use the records that the farmer has, but we generally also calculate it out through the planning process and list considerations for frequency of testing and other pieces of information that you might need. Like I said earlier, we have special conditions, which are a requirement for VPA plans, and they need to be included with the plan, as is no editing. They're available on the website, but they're also in the module. You'll just click down on what situation you're in, and it'll automatically load it in for you. And we also want to note that in the narrative, if you put something in there for a VPA plan, make sure it is attainable by the farmer, because it becomes an enforceable part of that plan when it is in the narrative. So always make sure that the farmer can follow what you're putting in the narrative. Plan maps, they've evolved over time. They originally generally recommended to be FSA, aerial photography, but now we have aerial imagery available just about anywhere. Your phone, the internet, ArcGIS, Google Earth, other imagery sources that can be used for mapping purposes. One of the big components of the online plan writing module is that it's a mapping feature where you will map out your fields, and it will automatically map your soils for you as well. You can create maps for the farmer through that software as well, so you can certainly use those maps to print out to hand to the farmer if you want something that shows, our specific pieces of information, such as where the manure storage is and highlighting the environmentally sensitive areas. So a map should include field boundaries, field numbers / names, however you identify them, acreage, environmentally sensitive areas, and manure storages if applicable. The balance sheets are the main crux of nutrient management planning. It's where you find all of the big pieces of information relating to what is being applied when. So you have your land unit / identifier / name, acres, the year of it, the crop of it, nutrient needs, residuals, seasons, manure and biosolids rates, how it's incorporated. When you put down those rates, how much NP and K is coming along with that, the net need, if you've applied manure, what is still left from the crop needs, which you can finish out with commercial, or if you are doing no manure, using all commercial. Then you have your notes, which are considerations above and beyond what is typed in there, such as splitting nitrogen several times. If you're doing an extra cutting of hay, that kind of information is in there. You'll have your lime recommendations and your summary P removal. How much phosphorus is being removed throughout that cropping system. Also to include are soil test summaries. So this will give a quick snapshot on one page of what the soil tests are looking like through that farm. The field productivity is generally related back to the Virginia Agriculture Land Use Evaluation System, which is how we base all of our general yields on if you're not using farmer records. That'll be snapshotted in this field along with the predominant soil of that field. And it'll tell you kind of the productivity class that you're aiming for in that crop, which is associated to a yield. And then some other documents you can include are the application summary, which is a more pared down version of the balance sheets. It breaks it down by crop type and year, so it'll show you the specific year, how much corn you planted in 2025, and give a snapshot of the manure and fertilizer applied there. So this might be a little more handy to give to the farmer versus a balance sheet, which generally goes by tract or field, or however you group your farms together. The application summary is a little just different version of that. The manure production summary is showing you how we calculated how much manure is produced on that farm, as well as the residuals from the plant available nitrogen incorporation rate differences. So it'll give some of the background information on how we're getting to the manure application rates. We have the manure spreading summary, which is like the application summary, only it really just looks at the manure, and it's pretty good to give you a running total of how much is spread throughout the year. And so that's what you would look to include in the plan to the farmer. There are a couple other reports that you can run in the module and in Nutman that might not necessarily be needed. Soil maps, they once you kind of have the initial layout with the farmer, these might not be necessary. These are more for you to look at to see if you need to group some more fields together or split them apart depending on the soil series of that and how they're managed. The farm summary and land unit summary are very large reports because they are basically giving extremely detailed information on every single field. It'll show the crop rotation history, soil test history, environmental warnings, P-index summary, and spatial information. Really, please don't include this into the farmer. I printed it out for a 7-acre or a 7-tract field, and it was 128 pages when I included the farm summary and the land unit summary. So this is not really something that's very helpful for the farmer. This is just how we're running things in the background. Same with P-index and erosion calculations. These will basically just show you how we got to those numbers that came out for that. And so those are each of the parts and pieces that we're going to be looking at over the next couple of months when it comes to writing plans. Thank you all for attending today. Again, if you want to receive continuing education credit for this, please put your name and certification number in the chat box. Not quite sure when our next plan writing back to basics webinar will be. Probably next month. And we'll be focusing on getting the information into the planning writing program. Again, for this one, we're going to be focusing in on the module, which is the online plan writing app versus Nutman. Are there any questions?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
This is Alex. A question I have is about bed pack manure.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the dairy farmers I've met with don't have a good grasp on how much bed pack manure they generate,
Mm-hmm.
and including not really recording or remembering how many loads they hauled out. And I guess one way to estimate that would be based on sort of the dimensions of the bed pack barn and the depth of manure. But so far I found that to be kind of inconsistent. Like the depth isn't consistent, and if they're like sometimes they don't clean it out for years, and so there's a density factor there, like that's variable. And from what I can tell, the module, it will generate amount of solid manure generated per animal based on their weight, but maybe doesn't take into account the bedding material, the sawdust or the wood chips. So I was wondering if anybody has some tips on how to get a semi-accurate figure for bed pack manure.
That is a question for the ages. I'm going to assume, yeah, because like you said, Alex, sometimes they are really good about cleaning out. Sometimes they go for years and they're, playing cow of the mountain after a while on
Yeah.
those. So I think it will really kind of, and that might be one of those depending situations where you go and you look at it and you might just have to eyeball it as a planner. Like you said, you can kind of use some of the dimensions to give you a rough estimate, and you can have the discussion with the farmer that if they might want to start taking better notes of, how much they are cleaning that out. And for that, potentially can do some equipment calibration with them to get kind of an idea of what they're cleaning out. But yeah, if anyone else has some helpful information for Alex, if you want to um, email it to, yeah, EB.
Um, on those, I sometimes work with just how much um chips or other bedding that they bring in for the year. And then the other thing can be depending if they got funding, they're supposed to empty those, whether they are or not, every so many days, twice a year. And so I try to write the plans based on if it was paid for by the state or NRCS, um, by the amount of tonnage that it's supposed to empty. And that way the plan is written to the standard that it's supposed to meet by the federal or state government. Whether they're doing that or not, at least the plan then is under the requirements, and you can, you know, if the you can get the farmers to sign the waivers with the state or the feds to be able to talk to NRCS or the districts to see what the tonnage the building was designed for to be cleaned out every 180 days. And so you can get the tonnage amount from that. And so then at least the plan is written to meet what its storage capacity was. Whether the farmers follow that or not, you can't control, but then at least the plan is written in compliance to what the building was designed for.
And it'll give you an idea of what really should be happening. Thank you. That was helpful. But yeah, a lot of these situations, especially with the, unpermitted dairies and whatnot, it can be a lot of trying to determine what they've been doing and how to help them out and calculate it a bit more. So those situations might need some more conversation over the years, just trying to get some more information on, like you said, how often they clean out, maybe getting them to clean out a little more frequently if possible, by just, talking about the analysis that can come out of that, so you can put that on your fields and not have to buy any kind of other fertilizer. Um, but in those situations, a lot of times it's kind of situation by situation where you try and do your best by looking at what you're given and knowing that the plan might not be perfect because there are so many external forces that come into plan writing that you as a planner have no control over. But just doing your best to look at what you're given from the farmer and go from there to try and recommend how to manage it. And if you have any questions that come up after these and whatnot, please, feel free to email them to me. We can touch on them in future newsletters. We can potentially get a better answer for Alex on his question, because I can talk to, other DCR employees, other planners, and we can kind of put together a little Q&A section from all of these meetings of questions asked and answered somewhere, so that future planners who might run into the same issue can go and look and find them. So please, yes, any kind of question you have, bring it forward to us and we will get it answered somehow, some way. If there's anything else from anyone, let me know either now or through an email. And like I said, if something comes up in one of these chats and we want to make that the topic of next meeting, absolutely can do. So if there's something you really want to talk about that we might not be covering down the road, give me a holler. I am happy to put it together. But otherwise, I hope you all have a fantastic day. Thank you so much for joining us, and I really look forward to our next presentation.